Alright, we're making a one button game jam, creating a game in 9 days or less than 9 days. And based on two key themes, one simple key to be played, no mouse movement, and spacebar is one of the options they're mentioning. That's probably what we're going to use. And then the themes, 3 words are given: dome, agreement, and bug. Dome and agreement inspire absolutely nothing for me. And I'm not sure if bug is going to inspire anything either. There's no real rules other than this in terms of what the game needs to be made in, other than obviously it needs to be easy to submit for the game to people in the game jam to be able to do something with it. We're probably going to do this in Godot because that's the only engine I can be bothered with, especially after Unity's shenanigans last year. So we're just setting up now. We're going to get started shortly. So we're just going to create a project. And because I got no idea what I'm making yet, I'm going to name this on the personal repository, and we're going to select this. And set us up to be able to use version control as well. And get started with Godot. Yay, thanks my dude for letting me know the stream's working. Alright, I can't do 3D to save my life. This is probably going to be a 2D game. We're going to go set up some options in Godot as we're getting started. Version control metadata. We're also going to do project settings, set up our viewport. In display window, I want this to go 1920 by 1080. And initially maximize from the get-go, and we're going to stretch. We're probably going to need to stretch to either canvas item or viewports at some point and figure out the aspects. We're going to leave this for now. And the other thing I forget is the input map. We're going to add a new action. And because the intent's probably to make an endless runner, we're going to create something that is an action to jump. And we're going to add keyboard keys, spacebar. There we go. So this is an empty game with absolutely nothing at this point. We're going to give ourselves some structure to work with. Scene, scripts, because we'll need scripts. Resources. And sprites. So first and foremost, we're going to create a 2D scene. Save this as our main scene. And for now, that's going to be what we use to test any gameplay that we're going to create. And we can see the line here covering, or showing rather, what's my viewport. That blue line here shows what we're seeing in Godot when we're going to load the game, unless there's a camera that shows something different. And all Godot does is nodes. So what we're going to do here is add a child node, and we're going to add there should be a character sprite or a character node. There we go, character body 2D. And this is going to need collisions to work. And right now also does not have a sprite. So first and foremost, so we're going to create a collision shape. And make it a rectangle, and this looks ridiculously small. There we go. The character would have the sprite and the collision shape. Right now, this means it's not going to be reusable at all, but that's tomorrow's problem. We're also going to add a polygon for now, because in absence of a sprite, I do want something. Although that's probably wrong. Probably just going to make an empty sprite for now. Going to go Inkscape. Thanks for letting me know my voice is coming low. Let's fix that with OBS. I'm surprised I'm right next to my microphone. All right, let me know if that fixes it. Bumped it up a little bit. All right, now that Inkscape is open, we're going to create something from scratch. All right, so we're going to get started. We're using Inkscape for vectorial drawing, primarily because pixel art just tends to make things more challenging. And I'm going to want that shape to be rectangular. We're going to do 360 by 360, that's overkill. Let's do 60 by 60. And this is in millimeters, not in pixels. And for now, the goal is not to make anything that's going to be definitive. It's just to give ourselves a shape that we're going to import and have something to add. So that our shape is visible and we can draw a collision box around it in Godot. So we're going to select our full layer, and for any selection parameters, I'm going to make this 64 by 64 pixels for now. Actually, we're not even going to bother exporting. I'm going to bring this directly to my project. Gonna muck around in File Explorer on the side. Take this square and bring this to my Godot project. Come back to Godot, I see my sprite here. So for this sprite specifically, we're just going to drag and drop the SVG file. This is way too big because it's using our page definition. So let's go edit this here. And we said my shape was I think I said 60 by 60 initially. Yeah. All right, gonna go back, drag and drop again. All right, now going back in Godot after I move the files, there we go. That's much more manageable. And for this specifically, I want the sprite to be part of my character object. Actually, we can undo that and do that in the middle of it, but I do need this to be around 64 pixels. which is where it'll probably be easier to size a sheet up front, but we'll do this for now. Alright, that's going to be roughly good enough. Then we're going to drag back my mishap with the collision shape from earlier. I guess the only time I'm going to hate on Godot is the zooming in the editor. There's a few things that I really struggle with in general. Alright. Gonna make this roughly the size of my square. It's a bit bigger. Not sure if zooming is gonna help fix this, or if yeah. Okay. We'll leave it bigger for now. That's just gonna be to test that many collisions work. And there's going to be an input map on collisions to fix for this to work. So I'll go and edit layer names. This is going to be my player, and in an endless runner for now, the only other thing we'll have is terrain. That's probably going to change at some point. So I'm the player. I don't want to be colliding with myself, although there's going to be one player, so that's a moot point, and we'll make sure we collide with terrain as a shape. We don't need to change anything in visibility. And we might need to change something in parent materials at some point for physics. Leave grounded for now. Then we've got our initial scene, and if I play this, there's absolutely nothing that's going to happen other than a square on the top left corner. And precisely in this case, we don't have physics. Got a child node. We're gonna have a platform that's gonna be physics body 2D, or one element of a physics body 2D. Platforms would be static. Yeah, I should have picked rigid instead of character. So I'm going to change that now. I'm used to character 2D objects from other experiences. This is going to be moved by physics. We're going to move these. Can this, and there we go. There's at least a mass for now and gravity, and now if we play this, this should start falling. There we go. We're going to move the rigid body actually, to make this easier now, we're going to save this as a separate scene. That's going to be the player scene. So we can make the edits in the player scene. And reuse this. And now I'm inheriting from that scene, or I'm instantiating that scene. So any changes I make, I'm going to make this separately. And this is how I move things without, or here's how I'm able to move the sprite and the collision shape. But once I'm in the main scene, I'm moving the whole object here. and not a single component of it. Now we're going to create a platform, and this is where we need physics, or not physics, sorry, static body 2D. We're not going to animate it for now. This is going to be a platform. We're going to make this a terrain, and this will collide with a player. And this is going to give us a warning. We need collision shape or polygon. We're going to use a collision shape for now. Collision shape 2D. And we're going to make a rectangle because we want to keep this simple. I'm also going to open another instance of Inkscape. And make this roughly the equivalent of 6 times the player in terms of width, but not in terms of height. And before getting really in depth, we're just going to make a rectangle, and we're going to make it roughly follow the entire document size. And we're going to try to make this look roughly like a platform, so some shade of brown. There we go. So rectangle platform for now. Again, this is not anything that's going to be in the finished product once we submit. It's just a test. And similar to what we've done with the player object, we're going to create a sprite here, sprite 2D. And in terms of texture, this is going to be the image. Just going to go to my file explorer and copy that over. Get back in Godot and it's going to import it. And of course I forgot 1 pixel. There we go. Alright, so the sprite for this, we're going to drag and drop. We're using SVG, which is vectorial, so once we're at some point, I'm going to need to make this the right size for this to work. And obviously we downsize the other thing. I can make the platform big for now. We're going to save this as a separate scene. We're going to call this under terrain scene. We're going to do a platform. Save this, and I'm actually going to open the platform scene now because the collision box is messed up compared to the platform size. So quick resize by just changing my scaling properties. We're going to have this roughly on the edges of the platform, maybe a bit beyond. Yes, this is going to be slightly above. Save the scene. We're going to go back to our main scene. and move my platform. In theory, with my collision, this should stop my object once it lands. Assuming I've set up all my collisions properly. Terrain, colliding with player. This is the rigid body. I did not set this up properly, and we're also going to change this. That change happened when I made a change earlier to, or change the object type, or created a new object actually. Okay, so now it should retain properties. I'm just going to call this player to be consistent for now, and my platform should stop it. There we go. The next step I want to do before we add any sort of inputs is for my platform to be the start of my level. And the player is going to have to start moving in a specific direction. So we're going to add a script to this player scene. So I actually want to do this in my scripts so that any script related to my player is going to be centralized. I'm going to call this player controller, and it will inherit rigid body 2D. I'm also going to make sure I'm consistent with class names from the get-go. Capitalization. And there should be a process method I can use on rigid body, but let's see the online documentation for it. So rigid body works a bit differently in character, where in character body 2D you control the entirety of the logic. In physics 2D you're adding, specifically based on the documentation, you're adding constant forces, which means I'm probably overriding the ready method to add a constant specific force. Yeah, exactly. Is it with the underscore or no? Probably is not. So add constant force, we're going to create a new vector 2. Add 50 units and no force, or no vertical force for now. And yeah, it doesn't get called. I'd have to add a signal for ready specifically. So we can set it as a constant force instead, and only when we're getting inputs actually change the force. So it's set in the inspector for now. And because this doesn't override ready like I thought it did, like the other physics objects, it's going to try this one in the main scene and see how this reacts. Doesn't. Try linear velocity. So it's got velocity until it touches the ground. Let's try 75 because it's a bit slow. Yeah, okay. We're probably going to need to create a new physics material to support this. So we're going to change the friction, and we're going to see if this reacts before we actually hit the platform. It doesn't. So we're going to try adding this to the platform as well. We're going to remove the friction from it. We're going to see how this behaves now. There we go. Solved our problem. And right now the problem we have is that this is not going to be reusable. So we're going to save this as a material. So materials, player, physics, materials, if I can write. And then for platform, platform materials. We're going to quick load specifically to make sure we have this selected. There we go. And that's just the editor showing us the properties. And for the player, we're going to reduce the friction and see how much movement that creates. It's roughly the same. So now one thing I'm going to do with this platform specifically, I'm going to change the width of this to give something for the player to drag along for a while. Start the game. And again, nothing really eventful here. This is a player dragging along the platform. We're going to close this. We're going to go to the scene for the player. And we're going to add a camera. And for now, I'm not going to add an offset. I'm not going to really change anything. What this is going to do is it's going to follow the player rather than be centered on the middle of the screen. So as we're going to add to the game, now we got something that automatically follows the player, which is pretty much everything we need in a 2D game with what we're planning to do around kind of an endless run. And this ping frame here is specifically the camera's viewport, and it follows the same size as the viewport. If I drag my player around, this is roughly the same size. So my player's safe, we got a camera, we're able to move, movement's automatic. The only added forces we're actually gonna go back to the main scene. I did some toying around with the forces here. So this is the base, and if I remember correctly, I'm just going to do an additional test. Do I actually move as I'm coming down? No, I move once I'm hitting the platform. So we're going to change this player scene. And I'm going to try this again. Actually, now at that speed, I'm not sure if I see it. I think I'm getting it. I'm gonna try like this. I'm starting not entirely on the platform. Yeah, there we go. This is probably not enough force for the player. So we're going to go back to the player scene. and edit this and give that a go again. All right, that's starting to be slightly better. So far I'm able to do this without having needed a script at all, but we'll need to eventually add input mechanics. And then the last thing to test is if I don't have a platform that is so obnoxiously long, which this should pretty much work instantly, but I'm going to add another platform. And now this is going to go from one platform to the other. There we go. We also need to fix the rotation. It's going to be on my player. I think it's with the damp that this might not rotate. Yeah, this damps most of it. Let's see what replace if this fixes my problem. Nope, still the same result. But the damp definitely helps. So we'll leave this as is for now, and we've got the basics to be able to go from platform to platform, and we'll just need to add inputs for jump. It might actually be easier to do this in a node and change the player scene. And I'm curious if I change my script type. And check with the documentation. No, it'll have to be a character method. we're going to go for inputs, this is pickable. And we should probably override input event instead of ready. But this is only going to be for the jump. That might not be the right method. So we're going to check if our jump is pressed, and we're going to do something. If that's the case, for now I'm not going to put anything. Yeah, that's not the right method because it doesn't actually handle this. So I probably need to apply this outside of Rigid Body 2D. Unfortunately, just because of the way Rigid Body 2D works. So I'll have to test if I want to do this with Rigid Body or if I want more control with a Character Body 2D that might make this easier. So for now we're going to go on the main scene. I'm going to add a script just to test this. Probably not feasible on the node anyway. Actually, no, that is going to be feasible on the node. So what I was trying to do here specifically we're not looking for add, we're looking for apply a force. And we have to do minus 500 in Godot. The coordinates are actually negative y is up and positive y-axis is down. So now my script is attached. So it adds a very limited force if I'm doing a single tap. I might be looking for an impulse rather than... Yeah, exactly. So force works with time and impulse actually works with... is a one-time hit, so impulse. I'm going to try this instead. Yeah, and I'm jumping way farther than I need to jump. I'm also curious as to where I'm landing with that jump. So just to see if I land, let alone if I land at all, I'm going to change this. I'm going to make another very long platform. Because I honestly could not see where I ended up with that jump. And now there's an unhandled event. So I don't actually know what I collided with there during the debugging. So we're going to change how much impulse we're adding. Start with 100. There we go. That looks a bit more natural than 500. We're still going to bump that to 2 and see what that looks like. Just does not look like we're coming back. We're barely coming back down. So let's try 150. That's still very floaty. So we're going to do 125. I'm also going to disable this on the player because I really don't need to be handling events if the node is doing this. That's still a bit too floaty to my liking. There we go. Now the only thing with this is I can jump infinitely. And this is where state machines eventually come in, but for now we're going to change this to a jump function. So we're going to apply an impulse. Zero minus 100, and then we're going to say that there's a variable can jump and we're only going to jump when we know for sure we're able to jump. So if we've jumped once, we're going to deactivate the jump until we eventually get a collision. Which should be with body entered and validating the collision type. For now, the way this is implemented, this is going to limit me to a single jump. Although a much higher one than I was expecting. Probably because I need to remove this part, and we're going to do player.jump. This is still not working as well as I thought it would. And why is that? So let's remove this to start. And we're going to try a single impulse. Not entirely sure why it's reacting like this, other than maybe if I'm holding the space bar. And that might actually be why. So we're going to double this and add the logic again. Yeah. We're just getting a little tiny jump once we block this and we're in a jumping state. There we go. Now that looks more natural. We just need to add a much bigger force. So that's fixed, and now I actually don't want to handle my signal like this, so we're going to create an initialization method. And we're going to connect our signals. Can I get the collision mask right away here? No. Now we're just going to validate whenever I touch something. Now it's not happening without the initialization. Yeah, whenever we get the arrow, it means that we're overriding an existing method. So on ready, I'm going to make sure that my player is initialized, and this now should trigger the connection. Or not, I'm wrong. Should be the right signal, but maybe not. Surprised this actually doesn't work. Just to make sure. So my collision box on this is bigger. What about the platform? It is bigger as well, so this should collide. And this should work. And these already actually physically collide, so I'm not sure why I don't get the collision triggered. Or is it because I've got two signal connections and this one was not working? So I didn't delete the one I tried to create. Let's try with that. Still not getting the signal. Really don't understand why this is not triggering, because I should be on the right node. Let's see if there's anything specific in the documentation. There we go. Set contact monitor to true. Still not working for this one. I'm wondering if the static body is the one actually handling the collision. Yeah, I should need to change that on the static body as well. Still not getting this. The other way would be with area 2Ds, but that seems overkill for what I'm trying to do, because we'd essentially have two collision boxes that would need to be identical. There we go, that might be the answer I was looking for. There we go. Okay, so now my collision detects. All I had to do on the player was making sure that I'm monitoring contacts and augmenting the number of contacts recorded at once. 10 is probably overkill, but it's probably still easier than trying to manage only one collision. So for now, we'll use 10. We'll see if this gives us any issues down the road. Now I'm just going to validate the method I use, but getting specifically the collision mask of the body I'm colliding with to make sure that sounds fairly close. I think. There should be a mask in some way, shape, or form. I wonder if I'm getting problems here because I'm specifying what the parameter is. There we go. That's probably why. So I'll get back to my collision later. The one thing I want to do right now is if I'm entering a body, I want to reset my jump. This is all we're trying to do from the get-go. I'm just going to work around the issue for now, validate that this is working. This is failing because I've got an error in my script. Because I messed with the indent. That should fix it. So now I can't jump, but now I can jump again. There we go, that's fixed. Alright, I'm going to take a minute, I'll be back later, and we'll continue adding to this and making sure that I'm working around some of the issues and the kinks, the speed, make this a bit more fluid, and then we'll probably stop here for tonight. We've got 9 days to get the game, so tomorrow's going to be around the theme more than specifically getting jump going and start adding game mechanics. I'll be back in a few minutes, we'll do a bit more, and then we'll wrap up. Alright, we're going to wrap up quickly, just given that I got a lot more research to do around physics and the physics engine. But so far, we've got a player, or a square. Limited single jumps when I'm colliding with a platform. I still need to validate that I'm colliding with platforms and not other bodies. So specifically, once we add enemies or logic in the game, making sure that that's not what I'm colliding with, so that this is now what's re-enabling jumps. Because jumping for this probably should only enable when we're on a platform and single jumps only. This isn't Metroid or anything interesting where you got 2, 3, 4, 5 jumps or wall jumping in. So probably stop here for now. And tomorrow and over the weekend we'll start adding theming and start fixing some of the things around physics, the different layers, and how to handle the different layers so that we're able to reset the jumping logic properly and make sure to add the right context. So have a good night and try to tune in tomorrow.